Welcome back then folks to the second build of day 3 of Special Projects Pack number 8 of course, this time for a build which is another fictional one, because of course this is not a replica of the Black Edition C63 that many of us know and love. It's definitely visually inspired by it, as you can tell by the colour, and I've done a couple of different colours because this is one of my designs, so you can grab it by clicking the link in the description below depending on what colour you like. As I recall, I think I did it in gold, white and black, I believe are the three that I did, but this is more of a alternate reality or a version of this vehicle which wasn't built. So what if they'd have done another Black Series, but based on this shape, C63 S from 2015, but what if they actually kind of returned to the roots of the Black Series program a little bit more? Because obviously over time, the Black Edition cars have gotten crazier and crazier to the point where now they're kind of ridiculous. Like the AMG GTR or AMG GT Black Series, it's bonkers. You know, it looks like a Lamborghini. Whereas back in the day, the SLK Black Series, which was the first one, the one that Clarkson loves, of course, the CLK 63, and even kind of the gold one, the iconic C63 Black, they're nowhere near as crazy. And I wanted this to feel like more of a jump back to that era of the Black Series. And I'll also say, because of the approach I took to tuning it, it's pretty interesting to drive. It doesn't drive how you might expect. And of course I featured some drifting footage of it in the trailer, the teaser for this pack. You can definitely drift it, I mean I am in the video, but it's also taking a bit of a different approach to its performance than you might think. Now, I do have the wide body fitted, and I've gone quite understated as far as the visual design on this one, and of course you can grab the fully built visuals, including the paint and everything, by clicking the link. But as far as the parts itself, there are some things that I've fitted to test things out that you don't need to buy. So, for example, all of the exhausts, I ended up just keeping it stock, so you don't need to buy any of those unless you want to. Of course, it does have the benefit of changing the sound, but it also, I believe, changes the visuals, if I recall, and I just didn't end up needing them. So we've got sports pads, stage 1 weight. I've left it on sports hard tyres because, again, road car, you don't want it to feel too good. We've got the sports brakes, the sports clutch and flywheel, the power restrictor and ballast. As far as the semi-racing stuff, once again, you don't need the silencer. We do have the fully customised computer, though, the mid-range turbo, the semi-racing clutch and flywheel, and the limited slip diff. As far as the racing stuff, we do have anti-lag. You don't need to buy that though, because I actually have not got that turned on. So if you do want to use it, go for it, but you don't necessarily need to buy it if you want to strictly stick to what I'm using. We've got the racing filter, and then as far as other stuff, we've got the fully customised suspension, and then for the extreme section, there's nothing, and for the ultimate section, nothing again. So pretty cheap. You know, it's a pretty cheap build to do. In a similar way to the Mugen, it's quite an affordable car if you do want to build one of the ones out of the 10. And as far as the tuning itself, I'm running numbers that to me look kind of believable. So yes, it does look pretty heavy, but some of the actual Black Editions are heavier than you'd think. And at the same time, 1650 kilos is a lot lighter than it is standard. I think it's like 1725. So we've dropped the weight by about 75 kilos, which feels kind of realistic. You know, in real life, if you look at the weight difference with hardcore cars, it's not actually as drastically different to a normal production version as you might think when you actually look at the numbers. And in terms of power, 602 horsepower to me just looks kind of right. That looks like a Black Edition or Black Series, in the case of Mercedes, kind of power. And incidentally, it sits quite nicely at just under 600 points, so you could maybe use it for competition if you wanted to. We've got the sports hards fitted. As far as the suspension, it looks super high on the numbers, but as you could tell visually, it doesn't look that high. 150 on the rear, 140 on the front, 4 for anti-roll, 30 on the compression for the dampers with 40 on the rebound, 2.25 for the springs. I'm actually running 0 camber, which is not usual for me, especially with a front-engine rear-wheel drive car. Give it a try, see what you think. We've got no toe on the back and towed out 0.5 on the front. As far as the diff, I've opted for 10, 40 and 40. Standard transmission, of course. The power restrictor is untouched, but we do have the ECU set to 95%. I have added ballast, because obviously the weight loss takes it way further down than I wanted it to be. So 115 kilos brings you up to 1650. And this is where things really get interesting, because I've put that all the way to the back. And as you can see, you may have already noticed, it has quite an unusual weight distribution. For a front-engine rear-wheel drive car to have a 49-51 split is not usual. And usually, I wouldn't even try to make the car like that. So why have I? Well, I wanted it to have more of a unique handling signature, because I don't know if I'm the only person who's noticed this, but this Mercedes is kind of weird in terms of how it handles in this game. It responds to tuning in kind of a strange way. It doesn't quite drift around in the way that you'd expect it to, but it's also not quite as sharp as you might want it to be. It's kind of a weird car in my experience. So what I've opted to do, and it's worked out quite well, is I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply to this fictional Black Series an approach that Maserati uses. And of course, I've said before, one of my favourite handling cars in real life is the Quattroporte. The Quattroporte, one of the things that makes it so notable is the weight distribution. It's a long four-door limo, but it has more weight over the back end because of how it's designed. And it gives it such a unique handling signature, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that in the game and see what effect it has. So I've given it that 49-51 Maserati-style split, and as it turns out, it worked pretty damn well, because it does handle in a much more unique way. We've got the medium RPM turbo fitted. Like I said, the anti-lag is there, but turned off, so you don't really need it. And as far as all of the other stuff, you can see that over here. So with all of that ramble out of the way, of course, we'll jump out to the short course of the Nürburgring, the GP course, and show you what it looks like in practice. Now, like I said, you can definitely get the tail out. Likewise with the Quattroporte, you can certainly drift it, but I would be curious to know what other people think of this one. I think that out of all 10, aside from maybe the signature Focus, this is probably going to be one of the more controversial ones. At the same time though, I don't see that many people clicking on this video. Maybe they will, but I don't expect it. So most people probably won't even care, but it's, like I said, a weird car to me in terms of working with it to begin with. It ended up having a pretty unique handling signature, because when I was first applying my usual methods of tuning to it, it just wasn't responding in a way that I would want. It felt weird to drive. It was either too slippery and it couldn't hold a drift that well, or it just felt awkward and kind of like a bobblehead, almost like a weird kind of vibe. Now I'm much more happy with how it performs. It's still kind of different, kind of unique, but yeah, give it a try. It won't be for everyone, not everyone will enjoy it. I wouldn't even say that it's difficult to drive. It's a pretty easy car to drive and it's certainly very quick, but I feel like one of the attributes of the Black Series cars is that they are kind of unique. Like, each Black Series Mercedes is totally different to all of the others, from the SLK to now the AMG to the CLK to the C63. They're all very unique, but also very clearly Black Series cars. That's what I wanted to go for with this one. So give it a try, see what you think. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But of course, stick around for the other pack builds and check out the ones which I've already done. And until then, I'll see you next time. But for now, thanks for watching.